So looking at linkable assets to start off with. So as organisations, as marketeers and as business owners, we're constantly engaged in promoting ourselves in one way, shape or form. Whether it's standing doing conference speeches or whether it's promoting competitions, whether it's going out there and just standing on the street and handing out leaflets, we're always doing this. So you'll have a brand marketing and comms plan that SEO has often been very siloed away from that. Okay, so we've always, some agencies, some people might have had agencies that have been in SEO agents, that's what they do. It's all very murky, it's very dark, we don't really understand, but we'll let them get on with it. Okay, it's never been that way for us. It's always been a case of saying, right, what are you doing as an organisation? What are you doing that we can leverage in the outer ring are these linkable assets. Okay, so if you've got a parent company, okay, and you know, there's an example where one kind of parent company who was a VC firm talked about their venture, but they didn't link to the website. Now generally, that has a very kind of high authority because there's an authority metric that's built around SEO and how valuable links are and how well regarded those links are. Okay, so there's a couple of examples here. Think about your stockists and suppliers. Okay, it might sound a very obvious, simple thing to say, but sometimes the obvious and simple things to say resonate the most because you go down, you make a list of your suppliers, a list of your stockists, and you'd be amazed about how many people do not have their kind of link on their site. Okay, so this is an example for Viking Direct. Who's a client of ours. They sell Carex hand wash among many thousands of other different products. Some of you may be familiar with them. They didn't have a link on the Carex site, but Carex had a section of their site where they linked to their retailers. Okay, so thinking about that is a very easy, quick way, free link. Okay, that's valuable. You know, Cousins Carex is a decent site. Okay, so and what happens is you get real world benefits, so people will come through this link and potentially buy, as well as the SEO benefit. Another one that we did as well was through Eindhoven Airport, right? So stocks and supplies are the obvious one. What are your other associations? What are your offline associations with different organisations, different authorities that you can utilise and leverage to get a link from? Okay, so again, you know, Eindhoven Airport for Travelex, talked about Travelex but didn't link to it. So you get in touch and it's like, yeah, it's fine. It's a process that you've got to go through and to enable to do it. But just sitting down and writing a list can really help. There's an interview session as well, and this is something that might be useful for people in the room. The Guardian, every week at 11 o'clock on a Thursday, hold a live Q&A panel session, okay, which is the Small Business Network. So we've created a relationship with the editor of the Small Business Network, and what we've been able to do is utilise for some clients, you know, linking opportunities on there. So again, this real world benefit of saying, not only do you get the exposure of being on the Guardian, you know, people like to talk about, oh, I was published on the Guardian, isn't it a great authority? But you get a value of a link as well. So you get a link from a huge website and trusted and authoritative such as the Guardian. That really helps your cause and it really helps your website because you know, if the Guardian are talking about you, then you don't get on there cheaply. Okay, so just thinking about these kind of offline opportunities that do exist and are there, it's just finding them. And then looking at content marketing, again, you know, it's a very cliched term, and because links have been tainted, okay, so link building as a service or a tactic has been tainted. And the reason it's been tainted is very much through those SEO directories, everything that we just looked at there this morning. So people's perception of what link building is, we don't want to do link building, links are dead, that's rubbish. Okay, Google's algorithm is very much built around links, okay, and it's how it differentiated itself earlier. It's, again, I said earlier, the way that we acquire those links is very much under scrutiny these days, but you still have to have them for Google to think that you're important. But also the real world stuff, and this is where the social element of SEO comes in. And again, you know, there's lots of talk about, you know, all you've got to do is tweet a few times and have an active Facebook following and Google will think you're great. Well, not really. It's anecdotal at best, and there's no real evidence to suggest that that really works. It's all part of being a brand, so we're not saying don't do social media, of course we're not, and only fool would say that, but just think about how you do it before you go on and invest in. So from a social point of view, what we talk about is you want to have some great content out there that is value and user-centric, okay, there's a 21st century buzzword. So it's something that people want to promote. Yeah, not how many cups of coffee you consumed, how many trees you've killed through printing rubbish off that you didn't really need. So people don't want to share that, and again, people don't want to share your organisation. You might think your organisation is great, but not everyone else does. Okay, so you've got to be able to share, you've got to be able to create something that people want to share. That then has the social media benefit. So by creating that content in the first place, gets people sharing it, okay, which then in turn has the SEO benefit of creating a buzz about your brand. So there's something called co-citation, well, which is again a very kind of new term really in SEO. So it's not just necessarily what a link says, but it's the words that are created around that link as well. So Google's getting more intelligent in understanding the relationship and taking into account the words that are around the link, not just the link itself. Okay, so having some great citations on sites that we're going to look at in a second will really help, and it also creates new fans as well, or followers. Okay, and here's something that is not new. This is Florence Nightingale back in 1855, believe it or not, and as far as we could see, this was the first real infographic. Okay, everyone's talking about infographics. We need to have an infographic. Well, not necessarily, but you know, Florence Nightingale created this infographic back in 1855 to show how people coming back from the Crimean War were dying unnecessarily just through poor hygiene. Okay, so she was able to correlate data to say that, you know, people coming back from the Crimean War who had suffered bad hygiene were dying not as a consequence of being in the war, but as a consequence of being bad, poor hygiene and poor cleanliness. So this is nothing new, okay? And Florence was one of the early pioneers, believe it or not. She's credited with a lot of other things, but not being the pioneer of content marketing. Okay, we think of it as being very, very new. Okay, but she was doing this ages ago. All right, what a great lady. And there she is, just having a bit of a laugh. Right, so when we talk about content marketing, you know, in a discussion earlier, we were talking about having so much content, okay, and that we're not able to get it out, and it's fast, and yes, it is. It's fast paced. You know, everything changes overnight, particularly in a 24-hour media world that we live in now. Okay, but what we've got to think about is, rather than just creating content for content's sake, is who's going to use this. So taking that step back, okay? The business owner, or you know, if you're a marketeer, the chief exec or someone might want to put out a really heavy brand piece, and they do have their place. I'm not saying otherwise. But what we've got to say is, right, if we want to really benefit our website, and if we want to benefit our organization, we don't just want to put a brand piece out. That would be useful for the people who already understand us and know us, and that's a great piece for them point of view. But what about the people who don't know us? What about the people who wouldn't ordinarily engage with us as an organization, but by putting something that's associated to our organization, will? Okay, so in this case, we did a piece on dressing like James Bond. Okay, and now I realise that all I'm missing is the bow tie. But you know, we had three different target audiences. Okay, we had the people who love 007. Okay, ladies and men. We had the film fans generally. Okay, so you have film aficionados who would like to share film stuff. And we also have the fashion people. So you know, this is a piece that we did for one of our fashion brands. So you have their followers as well. So you have all these different influencers who are prepared to share, or are likely, or possibly likely, to share this content. Okay, so you're not limiting to an audience that is very narrow in its scope. Okay, so thinking about audience targeting can either have a success or not if you put this content out. And let's face it, you're going to take time, effort, blood, sweat and tears to get it signed off by your brand people to get this to go out. Why not make sure it's successful in the first place, or as much as you can?